Welcome to the Hey Rhona podcast. Let's talk life and leadership. Each week, Rhona talks with high-capacity leaders about how their hardest seasons shape the way they lead and love today. We often keep struggles in the shadows while we lead, but those stories, they shape us. Our goal is to look back and see how we were shaped in the struggle. It's time to ask, what actually grew when life felt dark? Welcome to the conversation.
And so I think that's when I realized this isn't working for me. And then it really came to a point where I realized, I'm becoming very dependent on alcohol.
What are some things that maybe came up as an adult that led you to pursue therapy?
Yeah, so I think it was for sure teaching inner city. It's funny how grief works is 24th anniversary, to the day that I lost my grandparents. Those two outlooks really just changed my whole perspective on life. As a fifth grader, I just didn't understand, this doesn't make sense, why it takes everyone, on a different journey. When I look back in hindsight, have truly made me the woman that I am today.
Well, thank you guys for joining me today. I have a really special guest on today. Her name's Brittany. Loved learning more about her story. And so I'm just going to pitch it to you, Brittany, and I would love for you to just fill us in a little bit, maybe start high school, college, what you thought you were going to do, the route you were taking in life, and then kind of where you're at now.
Okay. Well, first, thank you for having me. So honored to be here. I originally am from the Atlanta, Georgia area, born and raised about 45 minutes outside of the city. I went to college downtown Atlanta at Georgia State University. Really had no idea what I wanted to do. I was just kind of open to whatever, really. So freshman year, I needed a work study job, and that led me into the field of education. And I always say that I never really chose teaching. Teaching chose me. And so that's really what my college career was focused on, is early childhood education. And so I went on to study abroad. I graduated from Georgia State in 2013. And then I was still after, China, it was kind of you can teach anywhere. So that just opened my mind to the world is mine in a sense. And so eventually went back to get my master's. Fast forward, ended up moving to Miami. We'll get into that a little bit later, but moved to Miami, met my husband there, and really taught for over a decade. And today I'm no longer in the classroom. I have a 2-year-old, but after over a decade of pouring into other people's kids, it's just time for me to pour into my own. I have a baby girl on the way, due in March.
But you're in such a great season. I know you said that teaching kind of chose you, but did you enjoy maybe being in roles where you were helping other people, or did you have any ideas of what you thought you would do when you grew up? Anything like that?
So I knew I always loved helping people. I was always a teacher's pet. Year after year, I was always teacher's assistant, go-to. It just, that part came very naturally to me, but I still never, I was good at it, but it was never something that I was this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to venture out into the medical field and did work study internships in high school, where I went to worked at a doctor's office and physical therapy. And at one point I wanted to be a dentist. And then I realized I can't just look at people's mouth all day. So this is not, I love helping people, but this healthcare field is not for me. So that's what I really thought, in high school, I thought I would go on in the healthcare field. And
It's cool though. The same desire just got you a different place.
Exactly. I never really saw myself leaving Atlanta until I studied abroad in China. And once I studied abroad in China, I was okay, I thought I knew what diversity was. And it just opened my eyes to so much more. And that's when I realized, no, staying in one place is just not what I wanted to. So after China, I came back and was just trying to figure it out. And I ended up applying to a program where I would teach summer school in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I taught summer school in Chicago because I think summers in Chicago are just the best. So that's what really took me there. It had nothing to do with honestly had nothing to do with wanting to help the kids. But it's funny how you can go into something with one vision and
Yeah.
then, ended up just being fully absorbed by everything kid related that summer. But no, it was good. It opened my eyes to, again, I can teach anywhere. And I met a roommate there who we both moved to Miami after Chicago. And then that's how I ended up meeting Kevin, because she was dating Kevin's best friend. And so we had a housewarming. And then, Kevin was invited over, and that's kind of how Kevin and I met.
Were they trying to set y'all up, or you just?
So apparently, I didn't know, but in hindsight, yes, they were doing some things behind the scenes that I didn't know about.
Was he a part of it?
I don't know. I know that
Okay.
Kevin's friend was very much like, hey, there's this girl. I think she's one for you. Like, I think it was
That's
more
awesome.
so his friend that was orchestrating it, but he was definitely like open to it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. I love that. I love how going to China ultimately got you to Miami. It's crazy
Yeah,
when you look back and you see those patterns and like the way things connect. And sure, you
for
could have
sure.
still ended up in Miami and still found Kevin at some point somehow, but that journey is always interesting of how we
Yeah.
connect the way. So that's so cool. I was thinking, I think in this part of the podcast right now, we've just been kind of diving in to topics of grief, topics of overcoming limiting beliefs or mindsets, overcoming addictions, that come up sometimes whenever we maybe kind of hit rock bottom. We're just in over our head, or maybe there's been trauma experiences. There's all different things that get us there, but we're just kind of creating a space to find some common ground that a lot of times we don't talk about, especially publicly, but for people to realize that as you're leading and loving others, you're not the only one that's carrying stories or walking through seasons that are complicated, and you're going to get through it. And along the way, we can start to look back and see how there was purpose in that season, whether we were learning a lesson or whether something was changing inside of us and really cultivating a specific area of our lives, or maybe it was actually transitioning us and moving us in to a different place even that we needed to get to. And so I would love for you to dive into that and kind of share some things in your life that you've gone through and how that shaped you.
Well, I would say really what has shaped my kind of outlook on life is two major losses as a child.
Mm.
One is actually, I didn't even realize that because we've rescheduled so many times, but I didn't realize that it's actually the 24th anniversary, like to the day that I lost my grandparents. So it was October 24th in 2000. And today is October 24th,
Wow,
2024.
Brittany,
I realized that
that's
earlier.
crazy. We
Um,
did. We rescheduled like 3 times.
yeah.
Wow.
And so I lost him. I was in fifth grade,
Mhm.
and it was super tragic because it was a house fire. And just, you know, at that age, I was just kind of like, I mean, I've always been the why kid. Even as an adult, I'm still like the why adult. Like, I just want to know why. Like, why did this have to happen? I've always understood death. I think, it was just such a tragic event that I felt like, couldn't they have gone more peacefully? Or, like, it was just a whole bunch of things playing in my head.
Yeah.
And so that one really shook me. And then 3 years later, I lost a great uncle to a massive heart attack, which was another, like, just suddenly, in a moment, here one moment, gone the next kind of thing. And so those two outlooks really just changed my whole perspective on life, like from a very young age. That happened when I was in fifth grade and seventh grade. And so it really just made me realize that, like, life is but a vapor and I need to cherish every moment. And it really gave me a peace that I can ask why as much as I want to, but some things I just won't have the answer to on this side of eternity.
Mm.
And now as an adult, I understand that. But, as a fifth grader, I just didn't understand. Like, this doesn't make sense. Why did this have to happen this way, kind of thing?
Yeah.
But, it really shaped my outlook. And it's funny how grief works is it takes everyone, on a different journey, on a different path. For me now, being 33, I'm able to look back and realize, like, how much stronger of a person I am because of it.
Mhm.
And really, it's just made me become more empathetic. And especially as a teacher, too, like you see that all the time because these kids are coming with these stories. And one day they're on a high, and you want to be on the high with them. And another day they come in and maybe they've lost someone or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And so it really just, I guess, shaped me in a way that really made me meet people where they are. That's what teaching is all about. Like, you
Yeah.
have to meet the kids where they are, you have to meet their parents where they are. Like, it's just about meeting people where they are. And so I think for me, those tragedies definitely just, when I look back in hindsight, have truly made me the woman that I am today.
Yeah, yeah. And do you have like you're talking about how you want to always meet people where they're at, but what was that like for you like when you were young? Did you feel like you had a lot of support or were you just kind of there on your own? I feel like every family, parents, it's not just that there's a right or wrong, just everybody kind of navigates those seasons differently because grief comes at us differently. And so
Right.
did you feel like you had a lot of support in that season or were you just trying to like navigate it?
I feel like it was a mixture of both. I feel like they were, trying to help me while also trying to help themselves. I feel like now, as an adult, what would have helped was like trauma therapy or like having an actual professional come in because a lot of my family members dealt with it differently. Like some, I wouldn't say moved on quicker than others because you never really move on in that sense, but it's like everyone just trying to help the best way that they knew how,
Yeah.
which wasn't necessarily exactly what I needed because it took me so long to actually process.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until really that I got into, therapy as an adult that I would work through some things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I think that happens so much as kids when we go through trauma. It is as an adult when we're able to finally like address it and get deeper into what was going on because it just wasn't dealt with there. And so there's like a lot of like opening up and going back and revisiting those things. What are some things that maybe came up as an adult that led you to pursue therapy and start realizing that there was like more work that needed to be done?
Yeah, so I think it was for sure teaching inner city. It really got to a point where it was just so draining in the sense where I felt more like a therapist to the kids than I did to their teachers sometimes because how can you teach a child who has so many things that that they have going on in their home life. It's like their mind isn't even in the space to receive what I'm trying to teach.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was just things that children shouldn't have to go through, but they were.
Yeah.
And so that was the reality, and I was trying to be strong for them and was kind of like their therapist, which at that point I didn't have much of a personal relationship with God. And so how I was coping was alcohol.
Yeah.
And I would just like come home, just like completely exhausted, would maybe tell Kevin a little bit about my day. But after living in it all day at school, the last thing I wanted to do was kind of deep dive back into it at home.
Yeah.
So I would just start with like, maybe a glass of wine and then it would be like two glasses and then, some nights maybe three. And then it really came to a point where I realized like I'm becoming very dependent on alcohol. Like
Yeah.
this is not okay. Drinking to the point where it's just like numbing, my feelings and really continuing to still be able to be present for them, but not for myself.
Yeah.
And so I think that's when I realized this isn't working for me. Like inner city has always been so near and dear to my heart. And I've always wanted to pour into that specific group of children. So it was a really tough decision to make that move to transition out, but I just needed to for my own mental health.
Yeah.
And so it was then that I started and really, rebuilding my personal relationship with Christ. And then through that, it kind of opened my eyes because I can't remember which collection of talks, but it was one that was really focusing on like mental health. And I've never really had it addressed in more of a Christian context, but it just made me realize like I need to, see a therapist
Yeah.
and literally have been seeing one ever since. And Can't recommend it enough. Yeah.
In that process and in that journey, I know you said like you found a therapist, that you found God, that you started like setting some boundaries for yourself for what was healthy for you. Are there any like resources that you came across in that season that really stand out to you even now that you know they helped you kind of navigate through that? Could be podcasts, movies, books, anything that, just really helped you kind of shape that season and grow.
Yeah. I think it's mostly been community, like just being around other believers who are also, trying to walk the way that you're walking, talk the way that you're talking. That's been key for me. Having accountability partners has been key and all of that, but I'm really like a face to face, like need to see you and feel you kind of person. And so I really enjoy just like community and being surrounded by people.
From staying busy working to now being at home and you have one little one and one on the way. Do you see, like, I know as a mom, sometimes these things from our past can start to trigger like limiting beliefs or just negative thoughts that we're having to overcome and process. Do you notice like a rhythm of some of those things that you've struggled with? And if you have, what are some ways that you've kind of reframed those or worked through those so that you're able to not just maybe lead and love others like from a performance base, but really like so that your heart's staying in check?
That's a great question. And I feel like I am kind of in it now. So I don't know. I think the biggest thing has just been taking both Kevin and I's family of origin and really figuring out, okay, yes, it's like those things are important and those familiar relationships are important. And, we are who we are a lot today because of those. But at the same time, it's like our family of creation is our priority. And so we've really just taken a deep dive into, really going deep with our family of origins and how, certain things, if we don't address them, could potentially become generational. So we're very cognizant, I guess would be the word. We're very aware of, cycles and patterns in both of our families and really making sure that we're creating an environment that is aligned with what we want and not necessarily just imitating what we grew up seeing or,
Yeah,
things.
that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of insight, self-awareness, and just a lot of intentionality with making sure you're creating new habits and setting the specific boundaries to kind of get you where you want to go. And I love that for you guys. I love your family. I think too, just listening to you today, I just keep thinking about how I feel like you're very much a safe space for people. Like even watching the way you lead others and you just help people feel included and really you're very intentional with bringing people together and creating a safe community for them. And I think that's really cool hearing that that's what you've needed a lot too. And so now you're creating that for other people. And so I think it's really cool how that happens and how God leads us to like give what we needed in those
Right.
seasons. And so I think that's where we can really see that, like I know it's kind of cliche, nothing's wasted, but I think you can really start to see that play out when we look at the things that we go through and what we needed so much, and then how we're now offering that to other people. And that doesn't always come easy. Like that's something that we have to really navigate in our heart, like the reasons why we're doing it and how we're going about it, and allowing God to really heal us through that process of like re-giving that and addressing the things that he brings up along the way. I think one thing that I like to ask everybody before we wrap up the conversation is, what is your big message to the world? What's something that you want people to know about themselves?
Wow. I love that. I would say that at least in this season, so Kevin and I lead SYMBIS, which stands for Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts, to really focus on yourself first. And then when you focus on yourself, then you're able to then do all the other things, like
Yeah.
in relationships, like two healthy individuals make up a healthy couple. I think that's the big thing for me. And what I've realized is a lot of times where we go wrong is because we're trying to pour out before we've been, filled up, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's,
Yeah, they're able to take care of themselves. And I think that's something as a society we have to practice a lot, is to give people room and that space for them to know that it's okay for them to take care of themselves. I think sometimes, not in a selfish, weird, creepy, like selfish way, but like you're saying, like really take care of yourself and understand where you're at in each season. And as you're navigating this next season and pivoting out of working to being at home with your kids, it's going to be a whole new set of skills that you're going to develop. Some of those things you've learned already, but now you're going to come into this season and have new skills to develop on how to take care of yourself, how to serve your family well by starting with your heart and navigating those new boundaries and new ways of living and loving them well. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, then we can't do it well.
Do you ever feel like personal development isn't getting to the root? Primal Question Coaching takes a different approach. Take Rhona's free Primal Question Assessment at heyrhona.com and join our free monthly call, both linked in the show notes. If you're struggling, reach out to a friend, find a therapist, or connect with Rhona at hey.rhona. If you have enjoyed listening, share it and leave a 5-star review. Rhona reads everyone. Until next time, cheers to hope and healing.